everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you on this beautiful Thursday. We continue in our new lesson, our study. What is the church? Who is the church? And why does it matter? We've been looking at this not just by words. We've been looking at this by proclamation. What did Jesus say when he made the statement, I will build my church upon this rock? What was he saying? And that is the heart and the foundation of this lesson, this series, if you will. Because again, it's not to bash the institution. It's not to in any way try to denigrate or shame or judge. This is about getting a proper understanding. And the reason that this matters is because as believers, our reflection, and we spoke about this yesterday, our reflection, it has to be that which represents God. And when I say has to be, that is the call that has been placed on every believer's life. That if indeed we have surrendered our heart to Christ, we have given him our life, we have come into that relationship with him, then indeed we embrace the truth, the reality that we were created in the image of God. And therefore, our reflection should be that of that image, right? Now, understand what I speak of is not about an image of perfection or without flaw, because that obviously would emulate God. But in our best ability as people, as humans, that we can relate to what it is he's called us to do, which requires that we trust him, which requires that, as Jesus would say, follow me. Not only just in a literal walking in step with, but watch what I do. That is why when he said, I will build my church, we go back to the originality of that word, that like-minded group of believers that come together in that one accord, that come together in that one spirit to follow him. And the image of that is something that can be seen. What we find today is oftentimes words get in the way, and words ultimately lead to action. Okay, whether that is a good one or not a good one, positive or negative. That's why, when we were talking about yesterday, relationship. Our reflection of what we do, it speaks as to who we are and what we believe, what we stand for. We're living in a time right now to where there are so many emotions and reflections about what's going on internally with people as they find their camp. Which side am I on? And what we have to understand is the enemy, the common enemy that we all share, that every person shares, is the enemy himself, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, whatever name you want to give him. The intent of that is to keep us divided. The intent of that is to keep you from seeing the truth. And here what we find in the confines of understanding, when Jesus said, I will build my church, if you will follow me, you will see the truth. And if you see that truth, if you live that truth, it will indeed make you free. It will set you free. We hear those statements, we hear those words, but we don't always act on them because we get so pulled away in other directions by other things. That is why it is so important. We've been talking about the image of the church, okay? Because again, we oftentimes only relate that to the building, to the establishment, to the name on the door, whatever's going on there. And what we find is oftentimes that does not paint the right picture. And again, that's not to be critical of any one particular group, but does that give the proper reflection of what God needs others to see? And so based on that, when we begin to understand, wait a minute, you mean that what I say and what I do actually matters when it pertains to other people and how they see the church? Absolutely. 100%. Because if we are a reflection of somebody sees you walking out of that building on a Sunday morning, someone sees you in that parking lot on a Wednesday evening for a study or whatever, they remember that. They remember that. And it's not in a I'm better than you situation. It's not in a I'm in a better place than you. It's not about critique, and it's not about trying to find out where we are on our spiritual meter. It's about what am I reflecting of that? Because what others see through me, it either invites them, hey, I want to be a part of that, or it sends them running the other way. That is why when Jesus said, I will build my church, he wasn't speaking of a physical structure, okay? He was speaking of you and me and how we represent that, because that is how things are built. We go to the book of Acts, to the first church that is established, if you will. And it says they came together in one accord. They set their differences aside and they came together in that unity, in that harmony to worship Jesus. That was it. That was it, to understand what that relationship was and how it was relatable. And what's important is we see that it says that as they continue to do that, as they continue to go from house to house and breaking bread and meeting with one another and doing all the things, they were added to daily. Why do we think that is? Why do we think that is? Well, think about movements today, okay? It's visual. Someone sees, okay, there's a group of people doing X, Y, Z, whatever that may be, all right? And whether they're having a great time or they're protesting and trying to burn down buildings, whatever's going on, it draws, okay? It draws attention, and it potentially draws additional people to get involved. Now, the question is, that person has to say, is that something I want to be a part of or something that I don't want to be a part of? Do I feel invited in that I need to get involved, or do I want to run the other way? Well, we see that in world causes all the time, right? How do we not think that that applies to the church? Because if we look at how it was established and we see it said a daily process, and more and more people came because they saw that it was a good thing. They saw that it was creating peace. It was creating joy in everyone's life that was involved. What we have to ask is, if God doesn't change, and Jesus said, I'm going to build my church, and it came together and it was working, and God doesn't change, then where did it go off the rails? That's a valid question. And we would see that through the ministry of Paul, as he would go back to those in Corinth and different places and say, what are you doing? Have you found a different Jesus than the one that we were taught about? Have you found a different way, a better way? We did that in our recent study on the 7 letters to the church, and I encourage you to please go and watch that. I think you'll be really informed and inspired and encouraged and every other kind of thing if you'll go and listen to that, because it gives such clarity about how we get there, how we get off the rails. And what we find in the church today, as we've allowed words to be, again, redefined, we've allowed words to be changed, then no longer oftentimes are things recognized. We see cosmetic changes in people today, and time changes us. We don't look like we did maybe when we were kids or whatever. We see a lot of cosmetic changes with people. They had this changed or that changed, and maybe someone doesn't look like they used to. When we see the establishment of what Jesus was talking about, we have to grasp, and this is the intent of our time together today, that the church is not the building. It never has been. Okay, it is more than just a social hour or gathering of just getting together. This is a time where believers come together, wherever it may be, and worship the true living God and wanted to learn more about him, want to lift up his name, want to continue in this journey together so that we can show others how they can come to know him too. That is where we sometimes are missing things. We see that happening within the confines of a structure, but are we seeing it happen in all corners of the world? Because that was the Great Commission. Go forth into all nations and tell. Are we doing that? Again, this is not to be critical or beat anybody up or make anybody feel guilty. That is not my ministry. I want us to understand the value of words, why they matter. So what is the church? We've been looking at it. Who is the church? We've defined that. Why does it matter? We'll jump into that part of it next week when we jump back right here at Making It Simple. God bless you, friends.